Hey there. So, for the tens, if not hundreds, of Studio HFL fans, I'd like to say hello, welcome back. I would like to let you know that I've got some more interviews finally coming out. In 2017, I started these interviews. First 50 or so were audio only, and then, of course, thanks to COVID and Zoom, I was able to get video for most of the rest of these interviews. And then life went back to somewhat normal, and I stopped editing, and it's been bugging me for some time. So finally, the pendulum has swung the other direction, and here I am finally editing and getting these interviews out. Now, early on, I had sponsors, and I was ever so grateful to have those sponsors. I wouldn't have been able to have quite the success for the podcast that I did without them. Of course, that includes, in no particular order, Eastman Music Company and S.E. Shires, Chop Saver, thank you, Dan Gosling, Austin Custom Brass, Hammond Design, Pickett, Blackburn, and Messina Covers. And I think I'm leaving somebody else out of there. I think that's it. Anyways, and also to some Patreon subscribers. Couldn't have done it without you guys either. So thank you ever so much. Oh yeah. If during the interview you are so moved to like and subscribe, then please do. Don't worry, this is my only ask. You won't see or hear about that again. So now, without further ado, on with the interview.
Larry.
So I'm in Indianapolis. Where are you?
I'm in Boston.
Never heard of it.
No.
Just kidding. Somewhere up north.
It's a small spot on the map, you know.
Insignificant in terms of history, right? Nothing ever happened.
Nothing happened here. There's no rock. There's no nothing. It's not, you know. It's just a little town.
Oh man, we're gonna have fun with this. I can tell already.
Yeah.
So
sure. We're in Indianapolis. Where in Indianapolis are you?
If you look at 1 o'clock, basically if you look at Indianapolis, we're Fortville. It's about 15 miles outside of Indy.
Okay.
But the way Indy is growing, I mean, you could probably still put Indianapolis on an address and it would get here. I mean, it's
gotcha.
Yeah. They call the donut counties here. Okay. It's exploding, man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's crazy.
Sure. It's my stepdad lived in New Mexico. And from 1992, 93 until about 2013.
Yeah.
And he lived in the Manzano Mountains. So when he moved out there, it was super rural. There wasn't that many people there. And so there wasn't that many people there. And then when I went to visit, there was maybe a house, and then you drive for a while, and then another house, and then drive for a while. And then maybe 3 years after that, I went back out again. And I was like, house. It's just people just filling it up.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
So it's thanks to Dane for putting us together. Dane Reese, right?
Yes, for sure.
So
yes,
and I don't know if you've checked out, the majority of who I've interviewed have been brass players. I mean, the overwhelming majority.
Okay, cool.
But now
I work with a lot of brass players, so
yeah. Well, I've worked with a lot of drummers, percussionists.
There you go.
Right? Let's put it that way. But a while back, I started branching out because I'm thinking, not that I'm going to run out of trumpet players, because there's plenty of us.
Of course.
But I'm thinking it'd be nice to have a little broader base, not only for my audience, but it's I would like to be able to know more about other parts of the industry.
That's awesome.
And I've had a San Francisco ballerina who's turned Broadway singer. I've had an Elvis tribute artist.
Okay.
My lone contribution from percussionist is a guy who is an expert on Gene Krupa.
Oh, okay. Well,
which
that's cool.
that was fascinating in
Yeah.
itself. Brooks Tegler is his name. I don't know if that
Okay.
name rings a bell,
No, I don't know.
but no, it's been great. And even though I might not have the lingo for for what you do,
Okay. Yeah.
hopefully I'm going to learn a little bit
There
of
you
something
go.
today. Um, so Zeke Martin from Boston. Are you from that
No,
area?
I'm not. I live in Boston now, but I was born in Belgium, in Brussels, Belgium. My big claim to fame is that I was born at the same hospital as Jean-Claude Van Damme. So the muscles from Brussels.
That's great.
And then when I was about, so we lived there for about 6 months, um, and then moved to Woodstock, New York for a little bit. And then my father got a call to do a gig at the Paris Opera. So we moved to France when I was about 2. And then I lived in France until I was about 13, and then moved back to the US in 86. Actually, right, not back, but yeah, I guess back to the US in 86, right to Boston. And I've been
So
here ever since.
you actually answered a question I usually want to know is,
Hmm.
do you have musicians in your family? So obviously, yes.
Aha. Yes, I do. Well, actually, I kind of come from jazz royalty. My father, his name was Stu Martin, and he played with, man, just about the who's who of jazz musicians, from John McLaughlin to Herbie Hancock to
Huh.
Thelonious Monk to Charles Mingus, and you can find there are some YouTube videos that you can find, um, that people have put up, which have been great. It's kind of cool to, like, see the videos again and stuff like that.
So
Um,
did you ever you're standing next to somebody like that and have no clue yet who they were?
no, I knew who they were,
Oh,
but
okay.
it wasn't like, for me, it's like, a very well-known drummer by the name of Victor Lewis, jazz drummer, used to come over the house all the time. And for me, it wasn't, oh my God, it's Victor Lewis. It was like, oh, it's Victor. You know what I mean? Like, great,
Yeah.
Victor's coming over. I love hanging out with Victor. You know what I mean? Or like Peter Warren would come over, a great, jazz bassist, and we'd talk about Cyndi Lauper or Sade or, so it was just around me, and I kind of grew up with it. It was more, both of my godfathers are Barry Alcho and Jack DeJohnette. And so it's more of like, that's family. It's not, I've never been, there was only one time, maybe 2 times, where I've been really starstruck, but that was because one of them was I went to go see a Sade concert, and I was just in awe of her. I started crying like I was at like a
Oh
New
wow.
Kids on the Block show. Like it was like I was like a 13-year-old girl just going, ah, screaming my butt off. Just, it's like, oh my God, it's
Man.
Sade. So, but yeah, I grew up with music all around me.
um, okay, but you said your dad's a drummer, right? A famous
Yes,
drummer.
yeah, he was
But
a drummer. Yeah.
what was the connection with the Paris Opera?
Okay, so we moved to Woodstock, New York, when I was 6 months, and we were living down the street from Jack. So just hanging out, and doing just living our lives. And then Stu used to play in a band in Europe called the Trio, and which was Bar Phillips and John Sermon. So the person that was dancing at the Paris Opera was this dancer named Carolyn Carlson. And so she said, "Hey, I want a drummer for this show." And John Sermon said, "I got the perfect guy." So he called Stu, and Stu got the call in Woodstock and said, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." So then we moved to Paris. And when I was about 3 years old, I was still working at the Paris Opera. My mother, Lee Norman, and my father, Stu Martin, split up, and she started going with the lighting designer that was actually working at the Paris Opera, named John Davis. So that became my stepdad. So I always had two dads, and it was just, one was a drummer, one was a lighting designer. So I grew up on stage.
Was it just a natural transition for you? I mean, it's one thing to take lessons when you're younger. It doesn't automatically mean you're going to go into music. You're going to follow that path, right?
Right.
But did it just seem like that was what it was going to be from as early as you can remember?
No, not even close. I actually I never really practiced. I never really, played drums. I just goofed off a lot. At one point, um, my father and Stu and Barry took me to their old teacher, Sam Milano, who was in New York. And, they were both, accomplished drummers, so they can recognize whether, um, sorry, turning off the heat. They could recognize, if someone can play. It's like, oh man, when he's old enough, you gotta teach my son, man. Um, he's really gifted in playing drums. It's like when I was 2, Stu was doing a clinic, and he was trying to teach this rhythm to a class of like, grown adults,
Mm-hmm.
and nobody could get it. And he called me in, and I'm like 2.5 years old. And he's like, Zeke, play this rhythm. And I played it instantaneously. And it was like, and he was basically like, if this 2-year-old can do it, why can't you guys do it? um, so so my father passed away when I was 7 in 1980.
Hmm.
And we moved here in 1986. And then when I was about 16 or so, I went to my mom and said, you know what? I want to keep going in my father's footsteps, and I want to become a jazz drummer. And she said, are you sure? I said, yes, I want to keep his legacy going. And she said, no. She said, there was already a Stu Martin. If you're going to do it because you want to do it, not because of him. So be the best Zeke Martin that you can be. And then we talked a little.
That's pure gold right there, right?
Right. Yeah.
What great wisdom already.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
Right. So it's like,
please go ahead though.
No, it's okay. No, it's okay. Yeah. There are times when I tend to like forget about that, but lately I've been kind of trying to remember that of like, just because you're not playing like so and so or being like this person, be the best person you can be. And I was 16, so then we were talking about some more, and she's like, are you sure you want to be a jazz drummer? Because, the lows are probably the worst lows you'll ever have in your life. But the highs are going to be the best highs that you've ever had in your life. And I said, yeah, I really do. She's like, are you sure you don't want to be a garbage man? You'll make more money. So then when I graduated high school, I got recruited by Berklee School of Music, but I decided that it wasn't really what I wanted to do. It wasn't really for me. I wanted to really learn how to hone in on my instrument. And so I started studying with a great drummer named Ron Savage. And then kind of like, basically um, music, went through the school of life, just,
Yeah.
meeting people and introducing myself. So yeah, music was all around me,
So
when I was, little and younger, but I didn't really get into it until I was like 16 or 17.
so
Although my
when you
first gig was when I was 12.
oh no, okay, so before I ask the next question, tell me
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
Tell me about that gig at 12 years old.
Oh man. Um, all right, so we were in Paris, and so here's actually the perfect brass story for you. So a friend of the family, because my stepfather was a lighting designer, he started doing lights for this very famous saxophone player by the name of Steve Lacy. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah.
And so Steve was a family friend. So he was doing a gig at an art gallery. It was Steve Lacy, Steve Potts, and Jean-Jacques Avenel on bass. So Steve Potts plays sax as well. And he went to my mom and said, do you think Zeke would want to play? And so that's my first gig in life. was with Steve Lacy. And so I did one gig, and then the following week we did it again. And Steve Potts went up to my mom and goes, "Man, he sounds amazing. Did he practice or anything?" And my mom was like, "He didn't even touch the drums all week."
Oh no.
And it was just like, I just, I think back to it and kind of like, as an adult now with like, kind of a brain to be able to process all of it, it's more of like I was able to kind of take what I learned from that first gig and then kind of apply it to that second gig without even consciously like knowing. So it was kind of cool.
Okay, so I think you may have just answered my next question. Were you
Okay.
drawn, when you think about jazz, right? Some people can just think of the broad picture of jazz, but
Right.
there's Afro-Cuban, there's swing, there's big band, there's combo, there's Latin,
Right.
I mean, who knows how many different ways you can split it up. But what particular style really were you drawn to?
So I grew up, my father actually, Stu, used to have a speaker in my crib when I was a little kid. And every single style of music went through that speaker.
That's
I grew
awesome.
up I grew up listening to everything. My mom was she grew up listening to, when she was younger, like Frank Sinatra and that type of stuff. My father, Stu listened to a lot of jazz, but also, other types of music, like just everything. My stepdad, same thing. He listened to, he turned me on to, Bob Dylan and Tina Turner. And, we had Prince playing in the house and Sade and the Temptations and just everything. Um, and then as life progressed, I started, when I came to the United States, I actually started getting really into hip hop. 80s and 90s hip hop was like, man, you couldn't tell me nothing. I loved it. And I still do. I still listen to it all the time in my car, just crank it up. And then I moved to New York in 1993. And someone gave me a CD. It was a guitar player by the name of John Schofield. And the name of the album is called Pick Hits Live. And it had this drummer named Dennis Chambers on it. And it's kind of like fusion-esque, I would say. I like to call it instrumental funk. But that was kind of my introduction to kind of like that style of music. And it just, man, I love it. Like that's what my band plays. And it's just, I try to be as versatile as possible as a working musician. But if I have my choice, yeah, if you want to fusion out and like kind of funk out, oh man, I'm totally down with that.
So it's funny that you mentioned Schofield, because somebody on Facebook this morning posted a picture of Miles and
Mm-hmm.
Schofield together, and that's not a combination that I necessarily would have put together. I didn't know, that they would have collaborated on anything. Maybe it was a one-off, a
Right,
live
right.
concert somewhere. But so, do you read?
A little bit. A little bit. I try.
And I don't mean
I'm
anything
not.
by that,
No,
only
no, no,
because
no,
of the
no.
way that you told me you were. And, I mean, of course, brass, we make fun of mainly viola players first, right? And then
Uh-huh.
percussionists second. But, the whole
Gotcha.
reading thing. So I'm
Right.
not trying to be funny about it. It's
No, no,
just
no, not at all.
because of the way you were raised, I kind of wondered, did reading ever become part of what you did?
Not really. You know what I mean? It was never, it was more about, in the jazz aspect of it, it was more about the feel of it. It's like having the feeling of, you know, playing what you feel, play the music that you feel. It wasn't until later on in life that people were like, man, read this or read that. Can I sight read? No, not at all. If you give it to me and I can spend some time looking at it, I can probably figure it out, with, my years of, my 20 years of teaching drums, because I'll just, it's rhythm. You know what I mean? So.
you know,
But when you start getting into the A through G thing, yeah, forget that. Yeah.
yeah, but okay, so but I'm even going to say, of course, I'm glad I can read music, but even now teaching, to me, the best way to learn is modeling,
Right.
right? Is
Right. Agreed.
because you learn to use your ears, you learn to play by feel, and of course, it's important to read in certain situations, right? But
Right. Right.
that really, you talk about putting the speaker in the crib. That right there was the best thing that could have happened, right?
Right.
Because you
Right.
you start to learn the language before you even know what it's going to look like on paper.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think that's really, I wish we could redo the whole music education thing here,
For sure.
and because it's just, well, it works because it's the only way that, not the only, but it's the majority of the way people teach here. And I'm thinking,
Right.
no, the Suzuki method, I don't know if you're familiar with that,
I
but
know of it. Yeah.
it's really effective, it's the approach of sound before sight.
Right.
You learn that language. Um, so okay, you mentioned your band. What's the name of your
Yes.
band?
Zeke Martin and the Oracle.
And the Oracle. I know I can figure out where the Zeke Martin came from, but what about the Oracle? What's that?
So basically the way that I kind of looked at it, so I've had numerous connotations of my band. It started off with um, Zeke Martin Quartet, then ZMQ, then Zeke Martin Project. Um, and my band would fluctuate. So sometimes it would be a quintet or sometimes it would be a trio. So ZMQ, if I had a trio, it wouldn't really work because it would be ZMQ. Well, what's the Q for? It's quartet. Yeah, but there's only three of you, so it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
So I changed it to Martin Project, and then I was gigging with a few people consistently. Like we actually had like a band, and we were gigging a lot, just the four of us. And we were at one gig, and I was like, "Man, we need a name for this band. Like, it needs something." And someone said, "Well, it's kind of mystical, when we play, and it's kind of like an oracle." I'm like, "That's it. Let's call it the Oracle." And then someone said, "What is your band? So why don't we call it Zeke Martin and the Oracle?" I was like, "Okay." I've never been one to be like, "Well, it's my band and we do how I say and do what I do, blah 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 blah." I've never been like that. So, for me to have it be Zeke Martin and the Oracle, it's kind of a little daunting for myself. But I like, all right, cool, fine, I'll do Zeke Martin and the Oracle. So, because a lot of times the personnel kind of changes depending on who's available, who's not available. It's not always the same people, just
Right.
because everyone has lives and everyone's trying to make money and gig and all that stuff. So well, I can't do this gig, I'm doing another gig. Okay, well, I'm not going to turn down a gig because somebody else can't.
Right.
Just can't do it. I'll try to find someone else who knows like the repertoire.
So, I'm even thinking from a marketing standpoint, you've got in the name itself, there's some unique things. I mean, Zeke is
Yep.
not a name you hear, right? All the
True.
time.
That's true. Yes.
And the Oracle
Yep.
is not, and then paired in the same title, right? I mean, I think from a marketing standpoint, you'd be like a
Right.
presenter's
Yeah.
dream, if you're gonna, I'm speaking from showcase experience, where you go
All
play
right.
for presenters and
Right.
do that thing. But so yeah, uh, as far as repertoire goes, do you do standards or is it all originals?
We do, yeah. It's a good mix. I try to do 50-50. Just because what I try to do is maybe start off with maybe one or two covers, standards or whatever, to kind of draw in the crowd. Be like, "Oh, I know that song," and then after they hear that, it's like throw a couple originals and be like, "Oh, that's a cool song. I like that. Oh, is that an original? Yeah, cool." And then kind of go back to covers and kind of go back and forth just to keep that engagement going with the audience.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember reading something about the band Chicago
Hmm.
just within the last year or so, and how when they go do a show, of course, how many hits have they had, right? I mean,
Right. Tons.
yeah, but they're still trying to work some, well, maybe not so much anymore, but like nobody wants to hear the new stuff. Everybody comes, buys the ticket, and they go and they want to hear 25 or 6 to 4 and Saturday,
Right.
everything that the band is known for.
Right.
And it's not like they get booed off stage, but
No.
they you can tell that the audience just kind of goes
Right. Right.
during that, so it's
During
funny.
that song. Right.
Right. Yeah, it's because like this is not what we paid for,
Right.
Um, but your situation is different because it's a more intimate setting,
Right. Right.
and and I'm thinking not just in an intimate setting, but it's a different crowd.
Right. Most definitely. Yeah. Most
You know,
definitely for sure. But what kind of is cool, but also stinks, kind of pigeonhole in a way, is being, you know, let's say for your example, Chicago, knowing that the crowd wants to hear all your hits. It's cool that they want to hear all your hits, but it sucks because then you can't do any new stuff because quote unquote no one wants to hear it. You know what I mean? Like it's just, and that kind of stinks. It's like, you can't really evolve. You can't,
right?
grow. You're kind of pigeonholed into playing, the same song every single night. And it's just like, you know, it's not, especially older bands like that, newer, pop artists and stuff like that are able to like, kind of do newer songs, that get played on the radio. But like classical bands like that, like Chicago or like, Earth, Wind and Fire, or, everyone is waiting for, Shining Star to come on, you know what I mean? Or, if you went to go see, what was it, Commodores, you got to go see, you're waiting for Brick House. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm thinking too now. You've got this. You might go as a trio, quartet,
Right.
quintet, right? So even if you have some of the same rep that you're going to do, there's some of the same sets, right? It's
Right.
going to be different
Right.
because
Right.
you've got different personalities
That's right.
vibing that
That's
night.
right. That's right.
And so it's fresh, even though the four of you might have played together however many times, or the five, whatever that combination. There's still going to be something new, I think, about
Right. Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious now, does the venue ever play into the vibe? Have you noticed how?
Yeah. I mean, it also, I think um, it very much is about who the crowd is too. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've played at maybe the same club, let's say 2 or 3 times. And the first time we have a crowd that's just ripping and roaring and screaming and hooting and hollering, and the tip jars overflowing and just all that stuff. And then we play again, and it's like, and people are like, okay, when are you guys done? You know what I mean? And it's the same club, but it just happens that one night it's happening, and the next night it's not. And it's not necessarily the band's fault. It's not necessarily the crowd's fault. It's just there might not be any connection.
Yeah,
It's same thing
yeah,
with like, I'm sure you had a teacher that you loved and studied with, but I'm sure there was teachers that you studied with. They're like, we just don't click. You know what I mean?
yep,
So, that's happened with me. I studied with my first teacher was actually Alan Dawson. And, studied with him for about 6 months, but we just didn't click. And then a few years later, studied with Ron Savage, who studied with Alan Dawson's, and he was teaching me the exact same stuff that Alan was. But for some reason, it just, clicked together,
yeah,
it snapped together.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Um, so you mentioned teaching, since you were talking
Yes.
about that, and you've been teaching. Did you say 10 years?
No, 20.
20.
Jeez,
I
oh my
apologize. 20
God.
years.
No, don't apologize.
Um,
It's I
did
can't
you
believe it
kind of
myself.
did you fall into that, or was it something like you wanted to pursue? I definitely want to start helping others.
You know what? I kind of, it's actually, I more fell into it for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I'd play and someone say, "Hey, do you teach?" Sure, why not? Yeah, okay. Um, and I started teaching one-offs here and there and doing a little bit of stuff. And it's funny because I remember this one student that I taught, and I wasn't really good at reading at the time. Even drum music, I wasn't really good. But I started looking in his notebook of what his previous teacher did. And I said, "Oh, okay." And in a way, I kind of, by doing that, and this kind of goes back in full circle about what you were talking about of like, you know, learning from visual as opposed to kind of like, it has to be like this, like this, like this. It's like
Mm-hmm.
learning more
Mm-hmm.
on the job training. So, looking at the kid's notebook, being like, "Oh, that's how you write that. Oh, okay, cool." And so I started writing that. And then as time progressed, I kind of made my own way of writing drum things out, whether it be rudiments or drum beats or
Mm-hmm.
different stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it kind of like fell in my lap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now I'm teaching at Northeastern University. I've been there for 13 years. And also during the summertime, obviously not this summer because of COVID, but this summer, during the summers, I teach at Berkeley School of Music, doing a percussion weekend, as well as helping out with guitar sessions with Scott Terulli. So, I try to stay as busy as possible, and I also work at Guitar Center Music and Arts store here in Boston, and I
Yeah.
teach there one day a week as well.
So when people come to you for lessons, are they
Yes.
coming for specific technique, or and what levels are people coming to you at?
Most of the levels that I get are beginner to intermediate. I don't really get too many advanced levels. Sometimes I do. Um, it's intermediate to advanced, but not like an advanced player.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to, have advanced players because, I've, in my life at least, I've gotten to a point where, you know, first of all, you're never too old to learn. Um, you know, so a few years ago, there's a drummer by the name of Nate Smith, um, and he lives down in New York. And I called him up. We have a mutual friend, and she got me his email address. So I emailed him and said, "Hey, can I do a lesson?" And going down and hanging out with him for an hour, we did maybe about 30 seconds of playing. Everything else it was more about talking. So it was more conceptual. And that's like, with advanced players, that's what I would love to teach, is more like conceptual stuff. So I kind of do that a little bit more with the intermediate to advanced players. But like beginner intermediate, being able to play a drum beat, being able to play a drum fill, being able to play along with a song. Because a lot of the times that's what, anyone just really ultimately wants to do. Man, I heard this song, I want to play with it. So that's kind of, and then I teach some other things that you can kind of have fun with, that you can
Right.
apply to the songs that you're
Mm-hmm.
playing to.
So let's go back to you mentioned the originals that your band uses. Do you write personally? Do you like from guitar or piano, or do you sing it? How do you create? Since you're now, I will say I know percussion can be melodic, right?
Yes, it can.
But yeah, what's that process like with your group writing a tune?
So I will have, of course, just like anyone else has ideas, right, for how a song or how they have songs or whatever. Since I'm not able to write in the standard way of writing music, um, I can hear it. I know what it's supposed to sound like. I know that, I want it to go up or I want it to go down, and, melodies are all rhythmic anyways, right? So the way that I kind of do it is and it probably takes me a lot longer than it might take you, for instance. But I get on my on my computer, and I have pull up a program, this is a keyboard, and I can hear it. So I kind of like start going through the notes of which note I want, and then I just pick the starting note, whatever. Let's say F, because I have a tune that I know actually is an F. Um, and so I then kind of like get the rhythm of it, and I start like counting on my fingers, and like I look like a 5-year-old. One, two. So I start seeing the rhythm, and then kind of like playing it rhythmically on the staff, and then from there I start to move the notes up or down however I hear the
Oh,
melody that
very
I
cool. Yeah.
want. And then I get that. So that's basically the blueprint of it. From that, I take that and I then bring that to the band. And then, that's also part of the reason, like for me, like, kind of going back to like Zeke Martin and the Oracle. And I was like, I don't know about Zeke Martin, everyone kind of contributes, is because, when I've put out 7 CDs now with my band, and it's never really been written by Zeke Martin. It's always been written by Zeke Martin and the Oracle. Because it is a group effort. It's a band effort. It's not like it's like, well, I want you to play it like this, and like this, and it has to do this and this and this. It's more of like, okay, here's the idea. This is the blueprint. Now do what you do and add what you add to this song. Um, and so it's like, like the keyboard player was like, well, maybe we could do these chords, or maybe we could do these chords. And, the bass player said, well, maybe I could do this bass line, and maybe I might go with that, or, something like that. So, and I have the rhythm in my head, and I have what I kind of want it to sound like. Um, and, what, I might want for like a bass line or a drum beat or stuff like that. Um, but a lot of the times, I kind of let the band kind of become an oracle of making the song.
Yeah. I want to go back and clarify something. You said that, I might be quicker at writing it down. Only if I had the creativity to come up with the tune. I mean, you are already infinitely faster than I am at this point, because, you see where I'm coming from, though. It's like,
yeah.
my approach is, I'm an orchestral trumpet player, and I go to the
Right.
recording studio and I play what's in front of me and I
Right.
interpret, right? But
Right.
as far as the creative process of writing it down, you're still way ahead of me on that. So
No, well, thank you. I
um,
appreciate that.
yeah, and it's interesting. I talked to a songwriter last week out of Nashville.
Mhm.
Shocker, there's a songwriter in Nashville, right?
Okay.
um,
One of
we're
many,
talking about
right?
one of many, right?
Right.
I was saying that because
Right.
you go there to either become a waiter or waitress, server,
Right.
or a songwriter.
There you go.
But even talking about the process there, it's so similar. Even coming up
Mhm.
with lyrics or melodies, it
Right.
was a collaborative process with the one I was talking to as well. It wasn't just everything from him,
Right.
and so I appreciate that you say, this is a collective effort with the
Right.
band.
Yeah.
And now what I think is that makes it really hard for anybody to sub in, right? Because
Well, yes, but no, because once the tune is once the tune is kind of done and the melody is there, and it's been recorded or it's been played a few times, you know I actually have a friend of mine, this keyboard player, Kana Dahar. She's a great keyboard player, and I actually said, look, I'll pay you, can you write out charts for me? So she wrote out all of my songs, charts for all of my tunes, which is great. So, but a lot of my tunes normally get recorded, and most of the time when I have new songs, it's because I'm going back into the studio, not because just a new song because I kind of hear it.
Right.
Um, so a lot of my stuff is recorded, so I can send them MP3s or whatever, and they can kind of hear what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So if people need to sub in or whatever, I can just send them MP3s. Or now I have charts.
Yeah. So speaking of the recordings, what kind of accolades, what kind of recognition for your recordings?
In 2014, 15, and 16, and then 2019, I was able to be Grammy mentioned, meaning that I was able to submit my records to be into the Grammys, basically. It's been reviewed by Jazz Magazine. Was it Jazz Times? That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've had two reviews, I think, from Jazz Times. And also by Drum Magazine. So, it's an ongoing process of trying to get publicity for the work that you do.
It's funny. About 5 or 6 years ago, I found out how the Grammy process works,
Mm-hmm.
right? And realized, man, if I paid whatever it was, $100 a year, I could be a voting member of the Grammys. It's like, how fair is that? And then, but then that you have to lobby, friends and acquaintances
Right.
and fans to say,
Yep.
hey, if you're a voting
Come vote for me.
member,
Vote for
right?
me.
And
Yep.
I always thought it was like the secret committee that met and
So
decided
I
all
was the
this.
same way. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the same for me. I was like, okay, who are the five people that get into a room and listen to all this music,
Right.
throughout the year? I'm like, that's impossible. So no, I was actually on tour in Chicago, and this woman came up to me, and she said, um, "Are you a voting member?" I'm like, "A voting member of what?" And she's like, "Of the Grammys." I go, no. I was like, is that possible? She's like, oh yeah, most definitely. And we started talking, and she kind of introduced me to one person who's actually part of the New York chapter. And he put me on, and I paid my, like you said, $100. And I've been a voting member since, oh my goodness, since 2013.
Mm-hmm.
13, yes, in 2013, 14, something like that.
Uh,
So it's
and
great.
I can't remember, like you get ballots for like every genre, right?
Right. Yes. So it's basically, well, now, I mean, they used to, which just always blew my mind, but they always used to do it on paper. And you'd have like, it was actually honestly almost like going to vote, like fill in the circles and like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now now it's online. So, it's all digital now, and it's basically, you know, uh, you vote for, best record of the year, best album of the year, best, performer of the year, so on and so forth. But then it's broken down into different genres of music, as to reggae to metal to rock to roots to classical, and then also there's engineers and stuff like that. They even have what's that called? Graphics, like CD
Oh
graphics,
yeah,
like
yeah.
cover graphics and stuff like that, photography, so on and so forth. So yeah, you can vote for whatever. So it's kind of cool.
So, I mean, winning a Grammy is one thing, but I think any, like even a mention,
Yeah.
that's a huge step forward, right? I mean, that's. I mean, you include that, and I knew that. I mean, I knew when I asked you that
Right.
question, I
Yeah,
knew
I know you
that,
did.
but it's like that you put that kind of stuff on your PR material because
Most
that's a big
definitely.
deal, right?
Yeah, most
And
definitely.
because it's that name recognition, right? If somebody
Right.
sees that, all of a sudden your status goes right
Right.
up another
Hopefully.
level. Yeah, well,
Hopefully,
hopefully.
yes. Hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah, it's I've, obviously, like you just said, ultimate dream is, Grammy winner Zeke Martin. But having it be Grammy nominated Zeke Martin, that's fine too. So
Hmm.
you try to work hard and get the best, as much accolades as possible, and try to, you know, like you said, go up that ladder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
try, yeah. So.
So let's talk about life as it is today, which is
Mm.
right. Tell me kind of how you and your group are managing through this time right now.
Well, so usually, non-COVID, I do about 200 shows a year, somewhere between 175 to 200 shows a year. I teach about 30 students a week. Right now, I'm doing about, so that equates to maybe about 15 to 20 shows a month, give or take. Right now, I'm doing maybe two, or three. Um, And then as far as teaching wise, I have maybe about a third of what I usually would have. Northeastern's actually back open. So I have about 10 students there. So, that's really cool because I'm able to like teach, and, we sit like 12 feet apart from each other, and we both have masks on. And, Northeastern is really good about testing and so on and so forth. They test about 2 to 3,000 people a day. So yeah, it's a lot, but they're really on top of their game. Um, and so, but surprisingly, I don't know why. I feel like I'm busier now than I was before. Um, I'm getting together with friends and we're jamming. I'm doing some recording stuff. I have a in-house drum set up, so I can kind of like an electronic kit that I kind of built. I can do some recordings, but also here in Boston, there's a lot of studios that are actually open. And so I've done I've done two records so far. I'm about
Wow.
to do another one next weekend, and then the last weekend of the month, I'm in the studio again for a couple songs. So, it's not, I'm not, as busy as,
Right.
it was with all the gigging, but I'm still kind of, still moving around. I'm not just sitting at home, watching
Right.
TV, doing nothing, playing video games all day. Um, so, but, I'm trying to do the best that I can. And then, I've kind of, as uh, for myself, uh, saved up for a rainy day, such as now.
It's
You
a
know,
it's a lot of rain too.
it's a lot of rain. It is a lot of rain. Yes, for sure. And I also had the way that my schedule was that it was I'd work my butt off from September until like June, end of June, and I have two kids. So summertime, I'd try to not gig at all during the summer so I could spend time. So when COVID hit in March, it was a little bit earlier than hoping. But than it normally would be. But I was like, all right, cool. And now, it's a little bit later than it was, but I'm still teaching. I'm doing a little bit of gigging, little stuff here and there. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Staying positive. Staying positive is the best thing to do right now.
Um, right before this interview, I
Yes.
interviewed a young lady from Birmingham, England,
Okay.
and she's a life coach for musicians. But she was telling me
Oh, cool.
that in the UK, the government has actually come out and classified the arts as not a viable career, a non viable career, meaning you should probably go retrain in another career. And, we talked about that. And it's like, first, it makes me mad that they don't understand the value of arts
Right.
to culture and humanity.
Right.
But, and of course we were kind of classified that way, right? A non-essential business
Right.
couldn't reopen. But I just think I can't imagine. Well, I mean, there's always going to be music and dance and art and all that. You can't stop that. It's going to
Right.
happen.
Of course.
But of course, we're still striving for that recognition that we're actually pretty important to
Right.
what goes on here. But
Yeah. So here to piggyback on what you're saying, I actually just came from a session. My friend, a saxophone player, we play in his backyard, and it's right in Boston, right in downtown, right not in downtown, but right in Boston, right actually behind Northeastern. And some guy last week or a week or 2 weeks ago came by, actually a week ago, came by and heard us and said, "Oh, hey, what's going on?" Blah blah. Started talking, and we started talking. I was like, "Yeah, I teach at Northeastern." He's like, "Okay, I'd like to do an interview with you." I get an email from this woman who I have no idea who she is, and she says, "Oh, I saw your article in the paper, and that's you. Oh, I was wondering who that was. Thank you so much for playing this music. Whenever I come into the office and I hear you guys, it just makes my day so much better and so much, it puts happiness, into my day during these tough times. And I'm not the only one. Thank you, Carrie." And it was just like, see, we are essential. Because, it's like, you need that. Everyone, like you said, everyone, I don't really know. I don't know anyone that doesn't listen to music. You know what I mean? So everyone listens to music.
Yeah. Even if they don't admit it, right?
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
they'll know.
Right.
And if you put "Don't Stop Believing," they'll probably, or "We Will Rock You," right? I mean, they're going to react a little bit to something like that. So,
right.
Man, this has been good. I've really enjoyed.
Thank you, Larry.
Enjoyed this. Yeah, it's I'm going to have to go and get a taste of your music, and I've at some point down the road, pretty soon, I've put together a couple of demos for this radio station, but some of my interviews are going to be turned into a radio show.
Okay, cool. That's awesome.
Which means I can actually, because they have licenses, the station has licensing, I can include music.
There you
right.
go.
So, and I'm thinking this now is the perfect vehicle, right, to not only put an interview like yours out there, but to be able to put music out there like that too. So that's very exciting on my end. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to tell you a quick secret. When I was younger in high school, I always wanted to be a trumpet player because I just thought it was so cool. Like in my 3-piece suit with my trumpet on my side, not that I could play or anything, but just that would be how I would like get all the girls like with
I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. Yeah. Well, I got the right one. Let's put it that way.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Larry,
thank you so much.
Thank you. Well, it's mutual appreciation on this. So
yes, for sure.
I wish you the best.
Same to you.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.